The sun is setting as a frail, hungry boy sneaks behind a bustling food stall, his hands trembling. Every day, he waits for the overripe fruit to be discarded. But today, the stall owner catches him. "Taking what's not yours?" the man growls. But the boy's eyes are filled with quiet desperation. A promise hangs in the air. Something more than food is at stake. Jamal is a man of status. His food stall, brightly adorned with vibrant fruits, stands at the heart of the bustling market. He has built his business from the ground up, creating a comfortable life for himself and his family. On the outside, Jamal is proud, confident and generous, always offering a smile and a warm greeting to customers. But beneath the surface, a deep loneliness lingers. His world revolves around his work, leaving little room for connection or empathy. He's distanced from his own emotions, caught up in the grind of daily life, believing that success and money are the true markers of happiness. Despite his external warmth, Jamal's heart is hardened. He judges people quickly, often assuming the worst in others, especially those who seem beneath him. Ravi, the boy who silently observes from the shadows, couldn't be more different. At first glance, he's a scrawny, unremarkable figure, his clothes frayed, his face covered in dust. But there's something striking in his eyes, an unmistakable glimmer of resilience, a quiet strength born from hardship. Ravi's family, poor and struggling, barely gets by. His mother works long hours as a cleaner, while his father, absent for most of his life, left them with only memories of a distant love. Ravi, despite everything, is a giver. He often goes hungry so his siblings can eat, and never hesitates to share what little he has. There's no pride in him, only an endless desire to help, to make things right for those around him, even when he himself has nothing. The kindness he shows is more than a trait, it's the foundation of who he is. Where Jamal is hardened by years of selfish pursuit, Ravi's life is defined by his ability to empathize with others, even when it costs him. Their paths cross every day, but the lessons they will learn from each other will forever change both their lives. It's late afternoon when Jamal notices Ravi again, sneaking behind his food stall, eyeing the ripening fruit that is about to be discarded. Jamal's eyes narrow as he watches the boy's careful movements. He has seen him many times before, always circling the edges of the market, never asking, just taking. Today, something inside Jamal snaps. "You're back again," Jamal calls out, his voice sharp. He steps forward, blocking Ravi's escape. The boy freezes, eyes wide, as Jamal glares at him with a mixture of anger and disappointment. "What are you doing, boy? Taking what's not yours?" Ravi stammers, his hands shaking, but he doesn't back down. I didn't mean to," he mutters. "My family, we don't have enough. The fruit, it's too ripe to sell. I was just trying to help." Jamal scoffs, shaking his head. "Help? By stealing?" He looks around at the bustling market, the voices of customers carrying on around him. He feels a twinge of embarrassment at being caught in such a moment. "Get out of here before I call the authorities." But Ravi doesn't move. He stands still, looking at Jamal with pleading eyes. "Please, sir, just this once. I won't do it again." His voice cracks with desperation, his words hanging in the air like an unspoken plea. Something shifts in Jamal, a flicker of something. Regret? Guilt? Flashes across his face. He's about to dismiss the boy, to turn away from the inconvenient reality of his own moral crossroads. But then, as he glances at the fruit in question, overripe, bruised, discarded by the stall, it dawns on him. But before he can say another word, the boy disappears into the crowd, vanishing into the maze of alleyways that surround the market. Jamal is left standing there, staring at the spot where Ravi stood, a storm of emotions churning inside him. The confrontation leaves him uneasy, questioning his own sense of right and wrong. But it isn't just the boy's desperation that haunts him. It's the nagging feeling that there's something deeper at play here. And he can't shake the feeling that their paths are about to cross again in a way he never could have expected. What will Jamal do next? And what is Ravi truly after? The answers lie in the next encounter, a meeting that will change everything. The next day, Jamal's food stall is as busy as ever. The market hums with life, customers haggling, children running through the crowds, and the sun beating down on the array of ripe fruit spread before him. Jamal, however, is distracted. The boy's desperate eyes, his quiet plea for mercy, keep creeping into his mind. What could drive a kid like that to take what wasn't his? And why, after all, had Jamal felt hesitant? But as the hours pass, the distraction begins to fade, and he buries himself in the rhythm of his business, until, out of the corner of his eye, he spots Ravi again. This time, the boy is standing at the far end of the stall, watching the fruit with the same longing expression. But he doesn't sneak around to the back. He's standing tall, his hands folded tightly in front of him, as if waiting for something. Jamal's heart skips a beat. For a moment, Jamal considers ignoring him. What could this boy possibly want now? But the curiosity gnaws at him, and before he can talk himself out of it, he walks over to Ravi, his steps slow, hesitant. "You're still here?" Jamal asks, more curt than kind. The boy looks up at him, his face weary but determined. "I came to say thank you," Ravi says quietly, his voice barely audible above the market's noise. Jamal raises an eyebrow. "Thank you? For what? For stealing from me?" Ravi's face flushes with embarrassment. "No, sir," he says, shaking his head. For not calling the police yesterday, for not turning me in." Jamal is taken aback. He's never encountered anyone who would express such gratitude for something so simple, so ordinary. His mind races, trying to understand. "I didn't exactly do you a favor, kid. I just let you off the hook." Ravi shakes his head again, a small, sad smile tugging at his lips. "You didn't have to," he says. "People like you, they never stop to look. But you did." The words hit Jamal harder than he expected. People like you. The boy sees him, really sees him. Jamal wants to turn away, to brush the moment off as another petty exchange, but something holds him in place. Just then, Ravi reaches into the pocket of his worn jacket and pulls out a small, bruised apple. He holds it out to Jamal. "Here, it's not much, but it's for you," Ravi says, his eyes sincere, his hand trembling slightly as he extends the fruit. Jamal stares at it, confused. "Why would you give me that?" The boy's gaze never wavers. "You gave me a second chance," he says. "Now I'm giving you a second chance to do something good. You don't have to be kind to me, but maybe, just maybe, you can be kind to someone else." Jamal feels his chest tighten. The boy, with so little, is offering something more valuable than anything he's ever owned, an act of kindness. His mind flounders, grappling with the absurdity of the situation. Here, in front of him, is a child who has nothing, but is willing to offer what little he has, a gesture of pure selflessness. It is a stark contrast to the world Jamal knows, where transactions are made and favors are rarely granted without expectation of something in return. Where people like Ravi are seen as a nuisance or a threat, not someone capable of offering real compassion. But Ravi is different. His act is not one of obligation, nor of bargaining. It is the kind of kindness that comes from a place deep within, from the soul. Jamal swallows hard, his throat suddenly tight. He doesn't know what to say, doesn't know how to respond to something so unbidden, so pure. The apple sits in his hand, heavy with meaning. For the first time in a long while, Jamal doesn't feel in control. He feels something stirring inside him, a warmth he's been too busy to notice, a crack in the wall he's built around himself. He takes a slow breath and looks down at Ravi. "Thank you," Jamal says quietly, his voice thick. "It's not much, but it's enough." The boy's smile is all the reward Jamal needs. Ravi turns to leave, but before he does, he looks back once more. "Maybe you'll understand, sir," he says softly, and with that, he disappears into the crowd. Jamal watches him go, still holding the apple, the weight of the moment pressing in on him. For the first time, he wonders if he's the one who has something to learn. Jamal stands frozen, the bruised apple still cradled in his hand, as Ravi disappears into the bustling market. The boy's words echo in his mind, a strange weight settling in his chest. "Maybe you'll understand, sir." The words seem to linger in the air, long after the boy has gone. Jamal's gaze shifts downward, looking at the small, imperfect fruit in his palm. It is no longer just an apple. It feels like a symbol, an unexpected offering that has managed to cut through the hardened shell of his routine life. For a long moment, Jamal stands there, staring at the apple, his thoughts spinning in 1,000 different directions. He doesn't know what to make of it. The whole exchange felt wrong, but wrong in a way that made his skin crawl, like something deep within him had been disturbed. In all his years of business, he's never been handed anything for free, never received kindness without a price attached. He's built his life on transactions, on the idea that you get what you pay for, that nothing in life is truly free. But here was Ravi, without expectation, without conditions, giving him something with no strings attached. Jamal walks back to the edge of the stall, still holding the apple, trying to focus on the flow of customers around him. He calls out to a few of them, making small talk, but his mind isn't on the business. It's on the boy. A second chance to do something good. The words replay in his head like an annoying hum, impossible to ignore. What did Ravi mean by that? Did he know something Jamal didn't? Jamal shakes his head, trying to push the thought aside. "It's just a kid," he tells himself, "just another poor child trying to make a buck." But as the thought enters his mind, he catches himself. He's not even sure it's true anymore. Something about Ravi's actions was so disarming. The boy didn't need anything from him, didn't want to take advantage. He wasn't asking for charity or handouts. He was simply offering kindness in its most pure form. Jamal exhales slowly, looking down at the apple again. It feels heavier now, heavier than any of the prized fruits he sells to customers every day. He looks around the market, noticing the faces of his regular customers, the same ones he's seen for years. None of them look at him the way Ravi did. None of them seem to see him, and Jamal can't help but wonder if maybe he's been looking at the world all wrong. The thought unsettles him, and he quickly pushes it away, burying it beneath his usual defenses. But it lingers, like a splinter under his skin. Something is shifting inside him, something he doesn't know how to handle. The next few days are a blur for Jamal. He's still preoccupied with the boy and the strange encounter at his stall. He finds himself walking through the market with a heavy heart, the usual humdrum of customers and the familiar sight of fruit no longer bringing him the same comfort. It's as if a crack has formed in the wall he's carefully built around himself, and for the first time in years, he's noticing the light seeping through. It's late afternoon when Ravi returns to the stall, this time with no apple in hand, just a quiet presence in the crowd. He stands at the edge of the stall, glancing at the fruit as if he's just another customer. Jamal notices him right away. There's something about the boy's demeanor today, calmer, almost like he's waiting for something. Jamal, despite himself, feels a pull to acknowledge him. He's never been one to initiate conversation without reason, but today something feels different. He approaches Ravi, his voice a little softer than usual. "Back again?" Jamal asks, trying to keep his tone neutral. Ravi looks up at him, his eyes bright but guarded. I wanted to say something," he says, his voice quiet but clear. Jamal raises an eyebrow, intrigued but trying not to show it. "Go on," he says, his hands still moving to arrange the fruits on display. Ravi shifts on his feet, looking at the ground for a moment before meeting Jamal's gaze again. "I know it was wrong to take the fruit that day. I didn't have money to buy it, but I needed it for my little sister. She's sick." His words are slow, measured, like he's choosing each one carefully. Jamal feels a strange twist in his chest, something between guilt and empathy. "You should have asked for help," Jamal says, his voice surprisingly softer than he intended. He looks at the boy's face, worn but earnest. Ravi shrugs. "People don't help when they know you need it. They just look at you like you're invisible," he says, his voice low but steady. Jamal's heart sinks. He's heard that kind of bitterness before, but never from a child so young. Ravi continues, "I didn't want to ask for charity, but I also didn't want to see my sister suffer." Jamal stands there, stunned. He's heard of poverty, of struggle, but hearing it from a child, seeing it in his eyes, there's something about it that pierces through Jamal's defenses. He wants to say something, anything, but the words feel like they're trapped in his throat. Instead, he looks around at the fresh fruit laid out before him, suddenly aware of how much it costs, how many hands have touched it, how much money has changed hands to make it available. He wonders how many people have looked at the boy and not seen him, not really seen him. For a moment, Jamal stands in silence, the weight of the world pressing down on both of them. Ravi's gaze doesn't waver. There's no shame in his eyes, just a quiet acceptance of his reality. And Jamal feels something inside him shift again, something that feels like the first step toward understanding, toward seeing. Jamal clears his throat, unsure of how to proceed, but then the words come, unbidden. "You know," he says, his voice steady now, "I've been running this stall for years, selling fruit to people who barely notice what they're buying. But you're different. You didn't just take something, Ravi. You made me see something I wasn't looking for." Ravi looks at him, a faint spark of curiosity in his eyes. "What's that?" he asks, his voice uncertain, as if he's not sure he really wants to know. Jamal pauses, feeling the weight of his own realization. "That kindness doesn't always come from the people you expect," he says slowly, as if the words are still forming in his mind. He meets Ravi's eyes, and for the first time in a long time, something within him softens. The boy's face lights up, a shy but genuine smile forming on his lips. "Thank you," he says, not just for the words, but for the understanding, the connection. Jamal smiles back, a little surprised at how easily the gesture comes. He's never been one to share much of himself with others, but something about Ravi, his honesty, his quiet strength, draws it out of him. He knows, deep down, that he's been given a gift, and in that moment Jamal realizes that maybe it's not about giving away money or charity. Maybe it's about giving someone the chance to be seen. The next time Ravi comes by, Jamal offers him a fruit on the house. "For your sister," he says, handing over a perfectly ripe mango. The boy hesitates, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You're giving this to me?" Ravi asks, his voice tinged with wonder. Jamal nods, a gentle smile tugging at his lips. "For your sister," he repeats, "and for you." Ravi takes the mango, his fingers brushing against Jamal's hand in a moment of shared understanding. And as the boy walks away, Jamal feels a quiet sense of peace settle in his chest. For the first time in years, the world feels a little more right. The next few days pass in a blur of routine for Jamal, but something inside him is changing. The market hums around him as it always does, but his heart isn't in it. He finds himself scanning the faces in the crowd, seeking out Ravi's familiar figure. He wants to see him again, to understand more about the boy's world, to do something more than just hand him fruit. But Ravi doesn't show up. Jamal tries to shake off the feeling of unease, but it sticks to him like a weight. Why hasn't he come by? He can't stop asking himself that. Maybe the boy didn't need him anymore. Maybe he's found someone else to help him. That evening, as Jamal locks up his stall, he can't ignore the gnawing feeling deep in his gut. His thoughts circle back to Ravi's words, the look in his eyes when he spoke about his sister, the vulnerability beneath the bravado. Jamal's hand trembles as he pulls the keys from his pocket, staring at the empty street in front of him. I need to do something more, he thinks, suddenly struck by the weight of his responsibility. He's been given an opportunity to make a difference, not just through charity, but by offering something more valuable, his time, his resources, his willingness to connect. The boy's kindness, his honesty, has forced Jamal to see the world through new eyes. And now he knows he can't just go back to the way things were. His gaze falls on the small bag of fruit he's about to take home for himself, a few ripe peaches and plums that he's saved for the evening. But as his fingers brush over the fruit, an idea begins to form. He looks up, a sudden surge of resolve filling him. Jamal's heart beats faster. He doesn't know what it will cost him, but in that moment, he knows what he has to do. Without a second thought, he locks the stall, grabs the bag, and heads toward Ravi's neighborhood. The sun is beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the street, but Jamal's steps are sure. The time for waiting is over. The street feels different under Jamal's feet as he walks toward Ravi's neighborhood. The air is thick with the promise of change, like something significant is about to unfold. Each step he takes echoes in his mind, a rhythm that matches the pounding of his heart. He clutches the bag of fruit, unsure of exactly how to approach the moment, but certain that he cannot turn back now. The sun has almost dipped below the horizon, casting the alleyways in an orange glow. Jamal's thoughts race. What if they're not home? What if they think I'm just a stranger? He shakes the doubt away. Ravi doesn't know him as a wealthy stall owner. He knows him as someone who has seen him, truly seen him. Jamal can't undo that. He doesn't want to. He reaches the small, crumbling building where Ravi lives with his family. The worn-out doors and chipped windows paint a picture of poverty, but Jamal's eyes no longer see it with disdain. Instead, he sees resilience. He sees strength. He sees Ravi. He knocks at the door, his hand trembling as it touches the old wood. There's a pause before the door creaks open, and Jamal is met by Ravi's mother, Maria. She looks at him with cautious curiosity, but there's a warmth in her gaze, a softness that makes Jamal feel even more out of place. "Can I help you?" she asks, her voice weary but kind. Jamal clears his throat, his voice surprisingly steady, despite the whirlwind of emotions inside him. "I'm Jamal, the fruit vendor from the market," he says. I wanted to speak with Ravi. I brought something for him." Maria's brow furrows for a moment, and Jamal can see the tension in her shoulders. Perhaps she's unsure about letting a stranger into their home. But then, as if recognizing something in his eyes, she steps aside, gesturing for him to come in. "Ravi's inside," she says softly. Jamal steps in, his eyes immediately drawn to the small, humble living room. There's a sense of quiet chaos here. Children playing in the corner, the faint sound of a television in the background, and an old fan buzzing overhead. Ravi is sitting on the floor, his back turned, absorbed in whatever task he's working on. When he hears the door open, he turns. For a moment, neither of them speaks. Ravi's eyes widen in recognition, and then he looks at the bag in Jamal's hand, his expression unreadable. I didn't think you'd come," Ravi says, his voice small, almost unsure. Jamal steps forward, holding out the bag of fruit. "This is for you," he says, his voice gentle but firm, "and for your sister." His eyes flicker to the worn, makeshift bed in the corner of the room where Ravi's younger sister lies, a blanket pulled tightly over her. Ravi hesitates, his gaze shifting between the fruit and Jamal. "You don't have to do this," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't take the fruit that day to expect anything. Jamal feels a lump form in his throat. The boy's pride, his reluctance to accept anything, makes him realize just how much he has to give, how much he can offer, not just through his stall, but through his actions, through his choices. Jamal's transformation isn't just about giving fruit. It's about recognizing that his world has become too small, that his wealth and success have meant nothing if they aren't shared. No, Jamal says, a quiet certainty in his voice. I want to help, and I don't want you to feel like you have to ask for it. Ravi's eyes well up with emotion, a silent battle waging within him. Jamal watches, holding his breath, as the boy reaches out and takes the bag. For a moment, there's a stillness between them, the weight of the gesture settling in the air. Jamal feels a rush of something he hasn't felt in years, connectedness, humility, gratitude. You don't have to repay me, Jamal adds, his voice softer now, the words almost feeling foreign to him. But I want you to know, you've taught me something important. You've reminded me that kindness isn't about how much we have, but how much we're willing to give. Ravi nods, his tears brimming as he looks at Jamal. Thank you. Thank you so much. The room falls into a deep silence as Ravi slowly hugs the bag to his chest, his small shoulders shaking with emotion. Jamal stands there, watching the boy, feeling a sense of peace that he hasn't known in a long time. Maria steps forward, her eyes misty, and for the first time Jamal sees the gratitude in her gaze, the silent acknowledgement that what he's doing is more than just a transaction. It's a gift of humanity, of connection. You're welcome here any time, Maria says softly, her voice full of warmth. Jamal looks around the room, taking in the simple, modest surroundings, and for the first time he feels that he's truly found a place where he belongs, not because of what he has, but because of what he's shared. As Jamal leaves the house, he feels something inside him lift, like the weight he's carried for so long has finally been eased. He walks away from the small house in the fading light, feeling lighter, not just because of the good deed he's done, but because he's realized that this human connection is what truly matters. As Jamal steps out of the small house, the door closing softly behind him, he feels a shift deep within. But it's not just his heart that feels lighter. It's as if the entire atmosphere around him has changed. He breathes in the cool evening air, the scent of street food, and the distant hum of city life, but it all feels different now. The weight of the world seems a little less heavy, a little more bearable. Inside the house, Ravi stands in the corner, still holding the bag of fruit, staring down at it as though it's more than just food. It's a symbol of everything he's been longing for. His hand trembles slightly, not from the weight of the fruit, but from the gravity of the gesture, the gift, the acknowledgement, the kindness from someone who didn't have to give anything at all. Ravi's mother, Maria, watches him quietly, standing just a few steps behind. She's always known the hardships they've faced, how they've made do with what little they have. But this unexpected kindness feels like something new, something rare. Her eyes glisten with emotion, a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. She steps forward and gently touches Ravi's shoulder, her voice shaky as she speaks. Ravi, she whispers, her voice catching in her throat. This is the kind of world I want you to live in. A world where people see you, really see you, not just your circumstances, but your heart. Ravi looks up at her, his own tears welling up, but he nods. He doesn't need words right now. His heart is full, overflowing with a feeling he's never quite known before. For once, it feels like they're not invisible, not overlooked by a world that often ignores people like them. They've been seen, and in that moment, they're not just a family struggling to survive. They are a family worthy of kindness, worthy of connection. Maria pulls him into a tight hug, a rare show of vulnerability, the weight of everything they've endured for so long released in that one simple act. She whispers into his ear, "We're going to be okay, my boy. We're going to be okay." Across town, Jamal drives home, his thoughts swirling in a sea of reflection. The city lights flicker outside his window, but his mind is on the boy, their exchange, their shared moment of humanity. Jamal had always seen his success as the result of his own hard work, his own abilities. But tonight, he realizes that it's not just about what you can achieve, it's about what you're willing to give back. When he arrives home, he looks at his reflection in the mirror, but the man staring back at him is different. He's softer, kinder, more connected to the world around him. In the quiet of his home, he finds himself smiling, not because of his achievements, but because of the transformation he's just experienced. The phone buzzes, pulling him out of his thoughts. It's a text from a business associate, but Jamal doesn't even look at it. Instead, he takes a deep breath and places the phone down, feeling the quiet peace that comes with knowing that, for the first time in a long while, he's truly made a difference in someone's life. And somewhere across the city, Ravi and his family sit together, sharing the fruit, sharing the moment, their hearts filled with something greater than food, gratitude, hope, and the quiet belief that kindness truly has the power to change everything. As Jamal sits alone in his study, the soft hum of the city drifting through the window, he leans back in his chair, deep in thought. His fingers absent-mindedly trace the edges of the desk, but his mind is elsewhere, back to that moment with Ravi. That boy, with his humility, his selflessness, had shaken something deep inside Jamal. For years, he had measured success in profit margins, in stock options, in the size of his office. But now, as the quiet of the evening settles around him, Jamal realizes those metrics had never brought him true satisfaction. He had been blind to the deeper connections that make life meaningful, the shared moments of kindness, the simple acts of giving without expecting anything in return. Jamal thinks of Ravi's family, their gratitude, their joy in something as small as overripe fruit. He feels an unexpected warmth in his chest, a sense of fulfillment that he can't attribute to any business deal or new venture. "I've spent so much of my life chasing the wrong things," Jamal mutters to himself. "But maybe there's more to life than just building wealth. Maybe it's about building something real with the people around you." With that, Jamal stands, a new sense of purpose in his step. He knows now that the richest moments aren't measured in money, but in kindness. As the screen fades to black, Jamal's voice softly narrates, his tone warm and reflective. "Sometimes we think success is about what we have, how much we've built, how far we've come. But in truth, it's about the lives we touch, the kindness we offer, and the connections we make along the way." The camera shifts to Ravi and his family, sitting together at their small dinner table, sharing laughter and the fruit Jamal had gifted them. The room is filled with warmth, their hearts full of gratitude. It's the little acts of kindness that can change everything. It's in those moments when we look beyond ourselves and see others, for who they are, for what they need, that we find something truly valuable. Jamal's car drives down the busy street, but this time the city feels different. The lights no longer seem distant or cold. They shine with promise, with the understanding that even the smallest gestures can ripple out and make the world a better place. We're all connected, and in that connection, there's power. Power to heal, to grow, and to truly live. The screen fades out, leaving a sense of hope in the air, the promise that even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples of change.